I'm going to show you how to produce a 5-number summary, which in turn will allow you to make a box and whisker plot. Now, it's called a 5-number summary because there's 5 parts to it. And the 5 parts are as follows. They are the minimum value, the maximum value at the other end. In the middle, well, we know that the middle is called the median. And if we think that halfway between the minimum and the middle, well, halfway of a half is actually a quarter. So this one is called the lower quartile. And not surprisingly, the other one is called the upper quartile. I'm going to show you 2 ways on how to get the quartile. One way is to use a stem and leaf plot that's already been produced here for a mixed gender class of their heights. Notice we have a key here. Notice that this represents the tens and they're equally spaced. Now there's 20 in the class, so the middle person will be between the 10th and the 11th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the middle person's in here. That means it's 166.5. 166.5. I've also arranged the numbers up here in ascending order. That's another way that you could do it. And again, if I count 10 along, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, then the median will be in here, same place, 166.5. Well, the minimum, that's pretty obvious, that's here. So that's 149. And the maximum, again, we can see is here, or equally here, and that's 180. So how do we find the lower quartile? Well, the lower quartile is basically the middle, or the half, of the lower half. So if we have 10 numbers, and think of it as our 2 hands, and how we find the middle of our 10 fingers, then we can go the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's somewhere between 159 and 160. So that will be 159.5. If we look here, the same thing. Here's the lower half, so the bottom 50%. We're going to cut it into 25% now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is in there. Notice we have 5 here, 5 students, and 5 students here. Upper quartile, the same thing. We have 10 in total in the top half, so let's find half of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's 5 above. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the middle of that will be 170.5. Again, we could do it off of here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We think it's here. Let's just check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, now what's happened there? Have I missed a number off? Just checking, I have indeed. Do you see here that I had 4 170s and I've only drawn 3? And that hasn't impacted on anything except the median. Good job, I checked. Accidents sometimes happen, so let's get rid of that. And let's add that extra 170, 71, 74. I wonder if any of you noticed that earlier. And you were shouting at the screen, come on, Mr. Vayman, sort it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just check there's 5 above as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go, 176. Now, we do have a special name for these. We do also call this one Q3 for upper quartile. This one is called the med, or we also can call it Q2, the middle quartile, and the lower quartile. Where's that now gone? Did I rub that out? Okay, that's in here between these two, and that we would call that Q1. That allows me to now draw a box and whisker plot. It's called a box and whisker plot because it has a box and it has whiskers. And these lengths will depend on how spread out these numbers are. Notice that in each of these sections will still be 25% of the population because we've cut it into quarters. And we can see that in this case, the first one would be the minimum, the next mark would be the lower quartile, the middle is the median, the next one is the upper quartile, and the last one gives us the maximum. Hence the reason why it's called a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 number summary. So if we draw that now, the minimum would be at 149. There's 150, so 149 would be about there. The lower quartile at 159.5, which is about there. The median 166.5, which is, I would say, there. Upper quartile 170.5, just over there. And the maximum 180, which is there. Then when we draw it, we draw the box first. And then the whiskers second. And as I said, they do not necessarily all have to be the same width. But in here, this represents 5 students, another 5 students in here, another 5. So these 5 here, between the 50% and the 75%, their heights are very close together. And we can see that's true over here. Do we see that they almost are all the same height? And that is why this is close together. So this also looks at the symmetry of the values and whether there's any skewness. That allows us to do one more thing very easily. From this end to the other end, well, that's from the max to the min, we can call that the range, and we can work that out quite nicely, which would be 180 minus 149, and that equals 31. And a new value that we haven't talked about before, and that's between the quartiles. And that distance there, well, that represents the middle 50%, because in each of these we just talked about that there's 25% in each of these, 25% of the students in each of these. And we call that the interquartile range. For now I'm just going to call that the IQR, but that's called the interquartile range. And to find that, we would take the upper quartile, 170.5, and take away the lower quartile, 159.5, and the interquartile range would give me, what would that be? 11. So the interquartile range is 11. So the middle 50% of students, their heights vary by 11 centimeters. And once again, thank you for watching.